Bismillahirrahmanirrahim, everyone. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Peace be upon you all and welcome to the channel. In this video, we will discuss a rather common declaration that many people witness within Western societies and unfortunately also Islamic societies, because there are only two countries that actually implement Islamic law, Afghanistan and Gaza. Those are the only two locations, which is why Afghanistan defeated 42 countries, I believe, or was it 32? I remember it was a number similar to the number of national teams in the FIFA World Cup, but it could be 32, it could be 42. Either way, they defeated them and they left the lands as dogs with legs between their teeth, with their tails between their legs, as they say. It was humiliating for the Westerners, but it was amazing for us Muslims. And when I say Westerner, I mean anyone that is non-Muslim. That does not mean geographically Western. It means someone that lives by the Western lifestyle, which includes India, Vietnam, Russia, Australia, and so on and so forth. Perhaps I should say non-Muslims instead. There are certain cultural differences between different non-Muslim countries, but overall fornication is allowed everywhere, which is the Western standard, hence Westerner. Speaking of fornication and adultery, or a deadly sin according to Christianity, there seems to be an urge for females, Western females to be specific, that motivates them to seek a boyfriend. And it is not because of love, it is because of financial convenience, so that they could split all the expenses. That way she can live easily or comfortably compared to living by herself. But let us pretend that she actually seeks a boyfriend to find her better half or to feel whole, etc., etc. Well, this video or this seminar will actually be quite short and it will upset many, but I will say this. A thief is only upset when you label him as a thief. Anyone that becomes upset with what I'm about to say is upset at the truth, but they wish to deny it, or they wish to disbelieve it, or ignore it, or even avoid it. My question to you is, which is better? In terms of rank, nobility, honor, chastity, and so on and so forth. Is it a wife or a whore? For those that do not know what a whore is, it is another term for prostitute, a female that sells her body for financial compensation. Which one is better? I am certain even whores will agree that this one is better in terms of rank, in terms of status, etc., etc. And if whores are upset, that means they know they are whores and they know that it is wrong to be a whore. That is why they are upset. Otherwise, they should take pride in their profession, should they not? Okay. Now, my question to you is, which is better? We have stated that a wife is better than a whore. Now, which is better? A girlfriend, which is a term that I find to be quite stupid and moronic, or GF according to Final Fantasy VIII, or a whore. Now I know the quick answer will be this one. The quick answer. But is it the correct answer? No, it is not. And I hope that your jaw dropped, because if it did not drop, it will drop even more now. Hold on. In this scenario or comparison, the whore is actually better or at a higher status than a girlfriend. Why is that? Because the whore receives a reward for giving her body away. She receives financial compensation for selling her body. My question to the audience would be, though it is a rhetorical question to be quite honest, there is no need for the answer. What does a girlfriend receive for giving her body away to her quote unquote boyfriend? Though I tend to refer to boyfriends as, or girlfriends as t-shirts basically. What does a girlfriend receive as a reward for giving her body away to a complete stranger or a boyfriend? She receives nothing. She does not receive money. She could receive an allowance or gifts, but that is not because she gives her body away. It is because the boyfriend wishes to treat his girlfriend, nothing more. Does she have a house? No, she might have her name on the lease, but is that a reward for giving her body away? Most likely no. It could be to split the bills, and the boyfriend wishes to live comfortably. Does she receive a marital proposal? Sometimes yes, though it might take a few years. And honestly, I do not really know if a boyfriend proposes to his girlfriend within a few weeks of dating. And please do not tell me we do not know each other. You start fornication before you even meet the parents. Shut the hell up. Anyways, I know there are exceptions, but exceptions are not standards, nor are they fiduciaries, because they are outliers. You have to understand, when statisticians report that a normal range for glucose in the blood is between 70 and 110 milligrams per deciliter, do you believe that they measured the glucose levels of every single citizen in the country or in the world? No, they did not. That would be impossible. So what do? They gather the results from many people and decide if this is the average, then the majority of the people would fall within this range as normal. That is incorrect, but it is a good estimate, nothing more. The same applies to society. If you wish to judge a society, you judge by the majority, not the minority. When I say the American society is a society of fornicators, that is true. You will tell me there are people that do not fornicate and wait till they are married. Yes, you are incredibly correct. But are they the majority? No, they are not. So I cannot judge by the minority. I have to judge by the majority. Why? Because the majority will be the frequent occurrence. I may not even meet the minority because they could be incredibly rare. I will definitely meet the majority where I find people fornicating. I might even find 3 or 4 people that are banging each other in, what do they call it? polymorphous relationship, polyamorous relationship, whatever it is. And then they mock the Muslims for having the ability to marry up to 4 women, but banging each other without a marital contract. The headset was disabled for a moment. I had to activate it again. But I love the double standards of Westerners. Oh, you can marry 4 women. That is demeaning to women. Well, in the West, I can fornicate with 100 women and it would be legal, legally valid. Think of polygyny in Islam as fornication with multiple women, but we are limiting the number to 4 and we are adding a marital contract to it. Why is that difficult? Exactly. Anyways, now, since the whore receives a reward for giving her body away, while the friend that is a girl receives nothing for giving her body away, the girlfriend is lower than the whore. A girlfriend is actually beneath a whore. The whore is higher in status or in chastity than a girlfriend, especially if there is a possibility that the girlfriend will be dumped and the boyfriend will find another or replace her with another. As I said, t-shirts. Or you could think of a girlfriend as a used condom. He uses her whenever he is lustful, and then when the condom cannot be filled anymore, he finds a new one, and that is it. For boyfriends, girlfriends would view them as dildos or any other phallic object that they use to penetrate themselves for masturbatory purposes. Basically, a girlfriend or a boyfriend are nothing more than disposable garbage, regardless of how you label them. But, anyways, one could argue, well, girlfriend might become married. Yes, you are incredibly right. But until this creature is transformed into this chaste, noble, and honorable member of society, she is worth less. Which is why, if you want to know if you wish for a boyfriend, firstly, you have to ask yourself, what is the ultimate goal? If it is financial opportunism, go to hell. It is as simple as that. But if your ultimate goal is to actually become a wife, then you need to ask yourself this question: how do I know that this person will do right by me and actually marry me? Well, if the person asks to meet your parents as the female for permission to date you with the intention of marriage, then you can rest easily and know that this person will do right by you. You too might fall into sin and fornicate, which happens quite often because of the lust between a man and a woman, which is natural lust, as opposed to the abnormality that people label as gayness. So, what should you do? How should you approach this, or how should your parents approach this? The dates should and need to be chaperoned. For those that do not know what a chaperoned date is, it is closer to what we have in Islam. technically speaking, we do not have dates when we meet people for marriage, but I am using Western terminology for analogies or close approximation, nothing more. What happens in Islam is if the man hears about the woman from his mother could hear about her from her friends, from her neighbors. It could be an arranged marriage where the mother asks people, and these people ask their people or their circle, and the news spreads that there is a particular mother seeking a wife for her son. After the match is found, then naturally the prospective husband will visit the prospective wife at her familial home. They meet for a few minutes, a few hours, but this happens with her family present, just to prevent any potential issues or potential actions related to physical or lustful attraction. Once they meet initially, then they judge. Do I see myself with this woman or do I see myself with this man? If the answer is yes, they schedule another meeting and then another. And through these meetings, the prospective husband and wife discuss various marital issues or marital aspects to be precise. For example, when there is an issue between you and I, how should we resolve it? Whom should we ask to interject? And so on and so forth. Then, once both parties arrive at a consensus that we view one another as potential spouses, then they commit to the marriage through a promise, which we call in Islam engagement. Engagement is the prospective husband's promise to the prospective wife that he will marry her. Then they decide upon a date for the marriage and then they marry. These chaperone dates prevent any mistakes from occurring. Why? I will explain that at the end of a video through a story. But if mistakes happen, that is not a problem as long as you rectify the mistake. There is no shame in committing a mistake. What is shameful is when you refuse to acknowledge and recognize that it is a mistake and then fail or refuse to take responsibility for that mistake or refuse to rectify or remedy that mistake. Two people that are engaged, and this happens everywhere, sadly, even in our Islamic societies, because our countries are ruled by the West, sadly, except Afghanistan and Gaza. And thus, their behaviors, their morals, and their standards infected our societies. But it could happen where two engaged people fornicate before marriage. If it happened, okay, fine, it happened. There is no point in crying over spilled milk, as they say. Rectify the mistake. How? Marry quickly. Expedite the process. Instead of taking 2 months for marriage, marry in a week, for example. Obviously, it would depend on the situation between the families, but regardless, expedite the situation. And in Islam, there are three matters in which you should be expeditious. Prayer, whenever there is a call to prayer, immediately go pray. Burial, whenever a person dies, bury them quickly because it is their right to be buried. And marriage, because of the issues with lust and desire, in case people are unable to control their urges. Now, for a Western woman, since most likely you will refuse the Islamic teachings, even though they are in your favor, whether you are Muslim or otherwise, but you will be arrogant about it, fine. If the boyfriend asks your parents for permission to date you, at the very least, even if he does not say, I intend on marriage, I want permission to date you, then you can feel safe. However, I will recommend this. The male, and I say male because men require certain personality traits to be satisfied within them to be called men. If those traits are unavailable, they are not men, they are male. There is a difference. The boyfriend must state this. The boyfriend must tell your parents this is what a conversation should be with your parents. Mr. and Mrs. Smith, for example, uh, I heard about your daughter, or I have talked to your daughter at work or at university, and I feel she might be a good candidate for marriage, and I would like to ask for your permission to date her so that I see if we are compatible, then I can marry her. Does not have to be exactly that. It could be similar to that, but the intention must be declared. That way you know, and your parents know, or your family knows, in case you are an orphan, for example, or your parents are dead or away, and you have someone else as your guardian, for example. That way you and your family know that he will not fornicate with you and then dispose of you and move on to the next one. It might happen. That is why I am urging for chaperoned dates, but I know you will ignore that, so tread carefully. That is what I will advise you. Now, after this, you have after uh, you and he during your dating period must discuss marital aspects. Do not focus on the sex, the romantic dinners, and the romantic dates, and that is it. Because you will be sharing a life under the same roof. You must discuss your potential marriage. What do we do if we have a disagreement? How should we resolve it? How long should we remain upset with one another before we actually resolve it? Should we bring a referee to arbitrate or an arbitrator to arbitrate between the two of us? How should we handle financial spending? Who controls the allowance at home? Should I, as the husband, give you, as the wife, an allowance and you do as you please? Or do I keep the money and you ask me for groceries and then I shop for you? You might belittle these details, but these details are actually the reason many marriages end even after decades of marriage, 20 or 30 years, because they never discuss these and delineate these matters. These matters are essential. Financial spending, arbitration, and in disagreements. It could be raising the children too. How should we raise the children? How should we instill financial responsibility, aptitude, and competency within them? When should they start working? At what age? When should they start dating? How will we raise them? How will we teach them? Will we homeschool them? Which schools should we target? How could we protect them from the influences of the devil, which is manifested through what the people refer to as leftists? And before you start barking, in Latin, sinister means left. I will not remark beyond that, but anyways, these are all matters that you should discuss while dating. Why should you discuss them while you are dating? Because it shows that both of you are taking this matter seriously. If you are simply discussing, oh, you looked so cute in this, or oh, you are so hot, you are not taking this seriously. You could have this type of talk with a masturbatory partner online, and that is it. What is the point of marriage? You must discuss these matters in your dating period, whether it is chaperoned or otherwise. It depends on what you feel is right or what your quote unquote instincts are telling you. Westerners love using that. I have to trust my instincts. Idiot, you do not even have any moral standards, which you do not have social aptitude. How will you have instincts? You have fear. That is what your instincts are. You are afraid of this. Oh, that means my instincts. You have nothing. You have no experience in life, no social aptitude, no communicative skills. What instincts do you have exactly? No wisdom, obviously. Anyways, after this, now set the date for marriage. I should note that this part, or this part specifically, should not take too long. In Islam, we judge that the best maximum, or I should not say the best, the maximum time granted for an engagement would be 6 months. That is the maximum. I know Westerners will laugh at this because they love tasting or driving for a few years before they finally settle on a car. Sorry, the buffet. Sorry, a spouse. And that is shame on you, not shame on us as Muslims, because we do not treat women as sushi or a BMW. We treat her as a woman. We treat her as a person that deserves dignity and decency. Anyways, now this should be as quick as possible if after this time frame elapses, you feel that you are comfortable with one another. This should be quick. If the boyfriend delays or conjures excuses, then he is not serious. Because I have seen people and I have heard of people that would discuss this and it would appear that they are taking the matter seriously, but then they say lol bye. Why, that is a different story, but is it a valid reason? No, it is not. And I can dedicate a video about stupid reasons for departing a relationship later on, bi'ithnillah and God willing. Now remember this, there are no excuses. 99 hot air balloons, probably no one will understand the reference anyways, 99.9% of excuses are invalid. They are simply reasons to delay, stall, or show disinterest. Sometimes the excuses are valid, but it is incredibly rare. Do not say he said he does not have enough money to marry. If you as a boyfriend do not have enough money, do not enter this step to begin with. But When they do not have enough money yet they enter here, it is because they want sex. That is it. You can, they taste, and then after the taste, when the girlfriend begs them for marriage, oh, sorry, I do not have money, or oh, sorry, I am not mentally ready. But you were mentally ready for stripping and having sex, but you are not mentally ready for marriage. Or what else is an excuse? Oh, I want to test her before marriage, or take her for a spin before marriage. She is not a car, she is a person. Now, I will provide you with this caveat. If you ignore all of this and you spend years dating, know that he does not intend on marrying you. How long would that entail? A year or above. If you have been dating for a year and above, or if you have been living under the same roof for a year and above, most likely he will not propose. And you also have to remember the studies. This is not Islam talking. These are your Western studies talking. Cohabitation. I hate these headsets. Anyways, for your studies, there are studies, or there was one study, I honestly do not remember, but one study would have literature review for other studies, so it is a collective of studies naturally. They have seen that married couples that began their relationship through cohabitation, which is defined as two people living under the same roof as husband and wife, even though they are not husband and wife. I believe it was 70% of these marriages or 80% of these marriages end in failure or divorce. Why? That is a different story. We can have a topic or a seminar for that topic in another video, bi'ithnillah, and God willing. But yeah, you know what? I will cover it briefly. Because he sees you as disgusting. He sees you as a used condom. I have been fulfilling my sexual desires with this creature. Bye bye, baby balloon. Now, why does he belittle you? Because you gave him your body for nothing. He did not earn your body. He did not earn it. You gave it away for free. When you give it away for free, you belittle yourself. You demean yourself. You insult yourself. You humiliate yourself. You belittle yourself. And he feels that, which is why he feels repelled by you as time progresses. As opposed to this process or the Islamic approach, he feels that he earned your body. Why? Because you and your family showed that you are a prize that he must earn. When he actually meets with your parents before he starts banging you, as opposed to banging you, then meeting with the parents at the end of the process, when he has to earn your favor, earn your parents' favor, earn your blessings, and earn your parents' blessings, he views you as a prize, as a gem, as a diamond, a precious item that must be preserved, must be protected, must be cherished. Because a wife would never give her body away without a reward. A wife gives her body away, and her reward is her husband giving his body away for her. Now you could say, well, a boyfriend does the same here. Yes, he does. But which one is higher? Which one has official commitment, whether it is religious or legal? Which one has official commitment? This one, which means this one is higher than this one and higher than this one. What does the commitment entail? It entails the persistence within this relationship through joy and through strife from both parties. I know many will scoff and say, modern women do this and modern women do that. I am not talking about filth. I am talking about normal people, not filth. To hell with the filth and what they do, I honestly do not give a damn. I am speaking about normal people. The commitment entails that the wife will remain by her husband's side through joy and strife, and vice versa. The husband will remain by his wife's side through joy and strife. That is what a commitment entails. You could say there were marriages that began as banging partners and had a successful end. I am not speaking about outliers or abnormalities or minorities. I am speaking about the majority. And if you look at the statistics of divorce in Western countries, they are through the roof. And the statistics of marital rates, they are declining sharply alongside birth rates and the size of the population. I feel Gaza, which is a neighborhood in Cairo in Egypt, if you are familiar with the city and the country, because I know Western education is, well, is absent. But anyways, Gaza outbreeds Western societies while they are being bombed. Imagine that. Anyways, that is why you have to remember, as women, you cherish security. You want to know that you are not with a boy, you are with a man, with a shelterer, a provider, a defender, a guardian, a protector, an advisor, also a lover, obviously, but I am not concerned with the sexual portion because in the West that could be obtained through many avenues. It does not have to be marriage. But your husband normally should have more experience in life and thus would be able to guide you accordingly. Because you, as a woman, most likely will be confined to the borders of your home, learning how to cook and learning how to clean, amongst other aspects of life, naturally. But your husband would be working outside the home most of the time. So he would have more experience in life, or technically speaking, he should have more experience in life than you do, and thus would be able to guide you because he can also function as a father, or he could assume a fatherly model as well. And I am not speaking in an incestuous manner, but a guardian is also an advisor and a guide. Your father plays that role, your husband should play that role as well. Because you, as a wife, could find friendship amongst filth, but you are unaware of that because you lack experience and thus lack wisdom and foresight. He could have that foresight and that wisdom or that experience. He could be more observant than you are, more analytical than you are, and thus detect the dangers quickly, especially since women are more emotional, while men are more logical. So they are alerted to dangers easily with respect to women. Women are alerted to other dangers, mostly revolving around children. If the child will fall off the bed, the mother awakens. But if the house will start to collapse, the father awakens. You and he have two different responsibilities because you have two different psychologies and physiologies. That is why you complement one another, and that is why gay relationships, whether for males or females, never succeed because there is no complementary dynamic between the two. And even if there is a complementary dynamic, one of the two will assume the demeanor of the opposite gender, which means that with two gay males, one of them will be more feminine. And the same applies to two gay females or lesbians. One of them will be more masculine. It will become natural because there must be a complementary dynamic, which is why these abnormal relationships fail. Now, I will not say, as feminists do, or as we call them back home, the fartists, that, oh, you are a strong, independent woman. You do not need validation from a boyfriend or from a husband and all of that mumbo jumbo. No, that is incredibly stupid. It is not about seeking validation. You have, man, I really hate these headsets. You have sexual urges. How are you supposed to satisfy them? Oh, yeah, find a male whore, find a boyfriend, or sleep around casually, and that is it. You will be satisfied sexually momentarily, but permanently you will never be satisfied. You will always seek more and more and more. But that is not what a husband provides. A husband, yes, does provide an outlet for the sexual urges, but you also have to understand God created us to seek marriage. You cannot betray your programming. That is why you have sluts in society. They seek marriage, but through casual sex, and that is it. Oh, I sleep with this person, that we might go on a date, and then after the date, sex, and then I find someone else. That is a faulty programming, but the programming is still there. Now, here is why you should not be a slut and instead find a good husband, marry him, and then commit to that marriage through sacrifices and compromises. And by the way, sacrifices and compromises are required in any form of interactivity with any person, between you and your manager, between you and your coworker or colleague, between you and your son, between you and your husband, between you and your parents. It is required everywhere. You will have to, at some point in your life, either sacrifice or compromise, depending on the urgency or the priority or even your standards, ethically or morally. Though with Westerners there are none, but anyways, you have to sacrifice and compromise. You cannot say, I have been married for 20 years, but I am bored. No, to hell with you. And this applies to the husband as well. You cannot use that as a reason or an excuse. You are, or I do not know whom I am. You are a wife and a mother. That is whom you are. If you wish to be a whore or a slut, say so, but do not say, oh, I do not know whom I am. No, no. That is basically a woman, a female aiming for a euphemism. She wishes to say, I wish to be a slut, but she embellishes it so that she does not appear as low-life scum. Instead, oh, I wish to discover myself and all of that mumbo jumbo. And what proves my point is that after they discover themselves, they realize that they miss their husbands and wish to return, but when regret benefits none. Anyways, you have to sacrifice. You cannot say, I am bored, deal with it. It is the same as with work. If you are a feminist or a fartist, you will become bored with work because it is monotonous or repetitive. Will you say, oh, I will leave work? I dare you to say that. But you will not. Why? Because then you will not be a strong, independent watermelon. Anyways, since you, whether you are a fartist or otherwise, endure work, endure the stupidity at work, do the same at home. Because you cannot escape everything in life. If you have a problem in life, resolve it. Do not escape it. And I know by Western standards, the term de-escalation refers to escaping your responsibility or escaping accountability or escaping the problem. That is what Westerners believe de-escalation means, which is obviously incorrect. But that is a tale for another time. When you encounter a problem in life, do not escape it because it will never be resolved. You can escape as many times as you want in life, but ultimately you will reach a point where there is no place for you to escape to. Then you turn around and you will see that you are facing a gigantic mountain that is comprised of your accumulated problems, which is why people collapse at the age of 40 in the West, because they have been escaping their problems for so long. Then they realize that they wasted their life amounting to the greatest discovery in the history of mathematics, which is zero. Then they turn around to realize that they have escaped their problems their entire life. Now they have to resolve these problems, whether they wish to do so or otherwise, because the only available path to move forward in life is behind that gigantic mountain of problems or issues. And that is why people collapse at between 30 and 40 or possibly earlier than that, depending on the circumstances, because they constantly escape, they constantly escape. And you have to remember this, whether you wish to believe it or not. When you encounter difficulties or challenges in life, introspect and reflect upon yourself. Most likely, what you are facing is because of a fault that you committed towards as another person in your past. You could have wronged someone, insulted someone unjustly, behaved in an unfair manner with someone. Perhaps you exposed someone without even hearing their side of the story. You judged prematurely. You arrived to conclusions quite early. You sought to defend your friend against someone unfairly instead of actually judging based on the facts and evidence, to the point where you might even lose that friend if you side against your friend for the sake of justice. Reflect upon yourself and see whom you have wronged in your past. And have the decency, not the courage, have the decency to apologize to that person. If you feel you are unable to reach that person, do not lie to yourself. Put in the effort. When you truly have exhausted all of your options, then you can tell me, I tried my best, but I cannot reach that person. Then I will tell you, okay, fine, you tried your best. But do not simply try one option. Oh, I exhausted all of my options. Be true to yourself. You can deceive everyone around you except yourself. You cannot deceive yourself, so do not even bother deceiving yourself. Now we will come to the story that I promised. Why you should not have casual sex. Long ago, a daughter approached her mother and asked, or rather declared, Mother, I wish to fornicate. The mother naturally was shocked. Oh, hold on one moment. I have to answer this. I will be right back. Apologies for that. I have returned. I forgot to mention here, or rather, I did not forget to mention it because this is not part of Western standards in marriage. There should also be a dowry discussed. And discuss dowry. This is not actually an Islamic aspect, believe it or not. There are, if you read about ancient civilizations, I should not say civilizations because civilizations actually indicate civility, and without Islam, there is no civility. And before you start barking, you do not clean yourself with water in the bathroom, which means we are cleaner than you. So since we are cleaner than you, our standards are superior to yours. Anyways, hygienically, and if it is hygienically superior, it is superior in all aspects. Anyways, because the dowry also adds to the adulation and the respect of a wife as well. How should you calculate the dowry? That is a tale for another time. Now for the story. As I mentioned before, I had to take my leave for a moment. A mother approached her mother and declared that she will fornicate. Naturally, the mother was shocked and refused heavily, but she decided to argue with the daughter or debate with the daughter that this is against our religion, this is unacceptable, this is inappropriate, and so on and so forth. And the daughter was adamant. I will fornicate, I will fornicate. Okay. The mother asked her, well, okay, fine, you can fornicate, but could you fulfill 3 trials? And after the three trials, you fornicate? The daughter accepted, okay, fine, I will finish your 3 trials, then I will go fornicate. Okay. What is your first trial, mother? The mother stated the following. Go to the main gate of the king's palace and stand outside, right at the gate. Once it opens and the king and his court exits, pretend to faint and drop on the ground. The daughter agreed. She went to the gate. Once it opened and the king was passing by, she pretended to faint and fell on the ground. The king approached her quickly and then attempted to resuscitate her, but she opened her eyes. He inquired about her well-being. She replied that she is feeling better now. Then, after she rose to her feet, the king and his court departed. She returned to her mother joyfully. I did what you asked. And the mother asked what happened. She replied, the king approached me and inquired about my well-being, ensured that I am well or I am good, and then left. The mother was overjoyed by the news. She told her, okay, for your second trial, go back tomorrow to the same gate, and once it opens and you see the king and his court exit, pretend to faint again. I seem to be popular tonight. Give me one moment, I will return shortly. Apologies for that, I have returned. Continuing with the story, after when the second day came to be, she left for the gates of the castle. She stood outside the gates alongside the crowd. The gates opened. The king and his court exited. She pretended to faint. This time, the king's minister or advisor, sometimes called the vizier, approached her and inquired about her well-being. She rose to her feet, replied that she is good. Then the vizier, or the minister, or the advisor, rejoined the king, and she returned home. The mother asked what happened. The daughter replied, the vizier came to me, or the advisor, the king's advisor came to me, inquired about my well-being, and then left. Okay, here is your third trial. Return to the gate tomorrow for the third time, and once the gate opens and the king and his court exit, pretend to faint again. And so she went for the third time. The gates opened, the king and his court exited. She pretended to faint and fell to the ground. One of the many guards in attendance saw her, approached her, inquired about her well-being. She rose to her feet, replied that she is good. Then the guard left and she returned home. This time she was furious, and when she returned home, the mother noticed her fury. The mother pondered, what happened? She said, can you believe this? I faint the first day, the king himself approaches me. Then the second day I faint, the king's advisor himself approaches me. Then today some lowly guard approaches me. This is unacceptable. The mother remarked, daughter, this is fornication. The first time you will have an amazing individual. Then the second time the quality will decline. And the third time the quality of the man will decline even more, because you lose your value with every time you fornicate. So this was a physical manifestation of what fornication does to a woman. The daughter understood the lesson and told her mother, I will never ask to fornicate ever again. Because she understood that she humiliates herself every time she fornicates with a different man. I will conclude this video with a few warnings for both men and women. Avoid, especially for men to avoid these females. Though this applies to both, but remember, with women, once they use their body, it loses its value automatically, which is why the wife is better and the wife is highest compared to these low-life scum, both of them. Avoid a literal bastard child, because those lack what we call back home an origin, though it is nonsensical in English naturally, but an origin refers to God's default settings. I cannot truly define it in English because of how poor English is with respect to the richest language ever, which is Arabic actually. And it is also the oldest. Origin manifests as nobility, honor, chivalry, kindness, compassion, mercy, and so on and so forth. Bastards, literal as in literal bastards, do not have that. because they do not have a family or parents. Biologically, they do, but they do not have actual parents. They have a sperm donor and an ovum donor. That is it. Since their parents are low-life scum, they too will be low-life scum. So avoid bastards. Avoid avoid females or males with past relationships. With males, it is not as detrimental because polygyny is natural. You can even find that type of behavior in animals, where you have one lion amongst multiple lionesses. Polygyny is normal. So if a man you will commit to has had multiple relationships in the past, that is not detrimental. It might be if he is haunted or affected negatively. He might be affected positively by those past relationships, as in he accrued experience from those past relationships and used that experience to become a better person. But if he is affected negatively by those relationships, obviously issues will arise. However, with women, this is problematic, which is why it is always best to choose a virgin as your spouse. Now, here is a manner by which virgins will trick you. There will be virgins that engaged in online sex with random strangers that they refer to as boyfriends or quote unquote partners. Biologically, they are virgins, but figuratively, they are not. And I do not mean biologically here. By virgins, I mean chaste females. They never engaged in that type of behavior. Or females that engaged in physical contact with a male but avoided actual penetration, or resorted to anal penetration to preserve their virginity. Again, that is not a virgin. A person actually engaged in a relationship with a Western female. She told him that she had roughly 12 or 13 boyfriends and girlfriends from the age of 6 till grade, what was it, 7 or 8. And she is also a literal bastard, but he decided to give her the benefit of the doubt because she actually, when she expressed that she developed feelings for him, and he decided to, there is no word for it in English, but instead of dismissing her feelings, he wanted to show that he was appreciative of her feelings towards him, even though it was not reciprocated. But he told her they were reciprocated to spare her feelings, but asked her to become Muslim if he will marry her. And she agreed immediately. She even researched Islam, she agreed with it, she read the Quran, allegedly, that is what she claimed. God only knows if she was truthful about all of that. And that is why he was not suspicious about those two issues. She even shared that she was in a relationship with a male and he helped her climax or reach orgasm twice in a night. But because he felt that she would truly become Muslim and change her ways, he believed her. Then suddenly, because she is, what is it called? A minor below 18, she accused him of being predatory, rape, and so on and so forth. Even though from 6 years old to grade 7 or 8, 12 relationships, that is normal. But when he promised her marriage because he is above 18, suddenly that is rape and predatory. The double standards of man, I hate these headsets. The double standards of Westerners are quite laughable, especially if you read the Bible or the Torah and see how young women were when they married, or even America before they set the age of 18 as the age of marriage. I believe it used to be 12 in certain states, and even currently now, the age of marriage in certain states is 15 or 16 with parental consent. And the age of consent, as in the age to fornicate, in many states, I believe, is 15 or 16. So if she is allowed to fornicate at that age, why is she disallowed from marriage? It is laughable, and Westerners do not even think. They are programmed. This is bad, this is bad. Okay, fine. Do not use your head. Which is why Christians do not even read their damn Bible. And if they read it, they do not follow its teachings because they have been programmed to be sheep. Move right, bang. Move left, bang. That is it. Anyways. And this is how his story ended, being defamed at the hands of her friends simply because he wanted to marry her. And she satisfied both of these. Why? Because these are considered sluts. Even if by Western standards they are not sluts, by my standards they are sluts. And since I am cleaner than you hygienically, my standards are superior than yours. And if they are sluts, they will never settle, as in they will never form a committed relationship. They will never marry. Why? We could cover that in another video, or I could cover it at the end of the video. Though I thought I would end the video with the story, but it seems that there was more. And avoid ingratitude. If the male or female are ungrateful, stay away. Do not give the benefit of the doubt. The benefit has already been doubted. The doubt became factual. It is no longer doubt. Why is that? With ungrateful people, they will never remember the favors you have done for them, the times when you stood by them, the times when you have supported them, the times when you were gracious and merciful to them. They will never remember that. If they do not remember that and instead feel entitled as if they deserved all of that, when the time comes and a gigantic problem stands between the two of you, the ungrateful person will leave immediately and easily. Why? Because they are ungrateful. They see that what you did for them was their right. It was not a privilege, it was a right. And that is why they can take your money. They can take, let us say you purchased video games for them or consoles, they will take those without any guilt, without any form or sliver of guilt. They will defame you. They will ruin you because they do not remember or appreciate your favors, your kindness, your generosity, and so on and so forth. I will add to, though it could be considered part of this, but I will add this as well. Dishonor in opposition. This is a staple in Western societies, even those that label themselves as quote unquote religious, when in reality they know nothing about religion. But, anyways, I actually have a video planned for how Christians actually hate the supposed Jesus that they claim to worship. And I will discuss how that is in its respective video, bi'idhnillah, God willing. We as Muslims, we love, respect, and revere Prophet Yeshua, or Prophet Jesus, or Prophet Jesus, peace be upon him, as opposed to Christians whom actually hate him. And I will demonstrate how in another video, bi'idhnillah, and God willing. That is why Westerners have dishonor in opposition, even though they claim to be Christians, when in reality they are secularists or Satanists, and we will discuss that later. What is dishonor in opposition? I will refer to a story that highlights the definition of dishonor in opposition. Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, whether you wish to believe in him or not is irrelevant. Take the wisdom even from your enemy, which might be me in this case. But take the wisdom, forget about how you feel towards me, accept the wisdom. Learn to listen before you bark, I mean before you speak. That is how you become effective at communication. The core principle in communication is listening, not speaking, because when you listen, you understand the perspective of your opposition. You might agree with it later on once you understand it, or you might disagree with it even after understanding it, but at least you understand. Which is why when you wish to judge a person by hearing stories from one side, you are unfair. You have to listen to both sides and then judge. Now, Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, had an adversary in the oligarchy of Quraysh, which used to occupy Mecca. One of their leaders, Abu Sufyan ibn Harb radiallahu anhu, he actually accepted Islam later and became a great companion. He, his wife, and his progeny became great companions to the Prophet, and they served Islam greatly, more than many people actually. But when he was a disbeliever, this story happened when he was a disbeliever at the time, Quraysh dabbled in business. They specialized in trading. Their trades involved exchanges in the Roman Empire and in the Persian Empire. One trip to the south in Yemen, which was part of the Sassanid Persian Empire at the time, and one trip to the Levantine or the Levantine region, which was part of the Byzantine Empire or the Roman Empire at the time. The story happened when he traveled to the Levant. Emperor Heraclius, who was actually married to his niece, so before you start barking about Islam, look at your own history first. And he is a Christian man, so go defame him before you start speaking about our prophet or our religion. Anyways, he was married to his niece, or was it his sister? I believe his niece. You can research it, but he was an incestuous person. So look at your own filth before you start barking and criticizing other people's opinions or ideologies. Look at your own dirty laundry before you start looking at other people's laundry. Anyways, Emperor Heraclius summoned Abu Sufyan and asked him about the man he heard of that rose in the Arabian Peninsula, claiming to be a prophet. He asked him multiple questions. What is his lineage amongst your people? How is he as a person? Does he betray? Does he honor commitments and promises, and so on and so forth? Abu Sufyan at the time was the mortal enemy of the Prophet, peace be upon him, because they were at war with one another at the time of that story. By Western standards, he could have lied to the emperor to defame the Prophet in the emperor's eyes and thus relay a negative image of the Prophet to the emperor. But he did not, he spoke the truth. He said that he I hate these headsets. Anyways, he stated that he was the best amongst the people of the Arabian Peninsula. His lineage was the highest, which was true. He is the direct descendant of Prophet Ishmael, peace be upon him. His son, his Prophet Ishmael's son or grandson, I believe, is Kedar, the one that is mentioned in the Bible. I am certain Christians do not even know what Kedar is. And also, if you are a Christian listening to this video, research the Valley of Weeping or Becca, and research in Islam where Becca is, B-A-C-C-A, as it is spelled or as it is anglicized in the Bible. Then see where that term Becca is referenced in Islam. Anyways, Abu Sufyan had every opportunity and by Western standards every right to lie, because Western judicial system encourages lying, hence why people tend to lie easily in Western societies, because there is no justice. And if you do not believe me, look what happens to rapists. Lately, a woman was raped, and her rapist received a sentence of 10 days in jail. So after the 10 days, he can rape again, imprisoned for 10 days, rape again, incarcerated for 10 days again, then rape. It will be a vacation for the rapist. Anyways, he had every right to lie according to despicable people. He had every right to lie. If he lied to the emperor, that is dishonor in opposition, because he lies to fulfill a goal, which is to destroy his opponent. But instead, Abu Sufyan resorted to what we in Islam call honor in opposition, to tell the truth about your enemy, even if that truth will actually be a compliment. Now you know why I say this is quite common in the West. Even if you feel it is justified, it is never justified. Dishonor in opposition is never justified. A good example of this would be those that expose the infidelity of their spouses on camera and then publish the video online. That is dishonor in opposition. You will start barking, she deserves it. No, she does not. Why is that? If you expose someone instead of sheltering their sin, God will send someone to expose you. Because the proper approach would be to shelter the sin of a person. Because you are also susceptible to that same sin. Even if you do not commit it, you may commit it later on. And if you are a Christian, you should follow the teachings of Prophet Yeshua, peace be upon him, with the I believe people refer to her as the adulterer. I do not really remember, when she was being stoned to death, if I recall correctly, and blood splattered on the crowd, and the person who was covered in her blood cursed her, and then Prophet Yeshua, peace be upon him, asked, whomever is not sinful, raise your hand, and no one raised his hand. So here he added, she is repenting for her sin through this action. Do not condemn her because she is actually repenting through this punishment. I might be mistaken, but I feel this story happened with Prophet Yeshua, peace be upon him. If I am incorrect, please recount the actual story in the comments below. I remember a video I saw. A soldier returned from either Iraq or Afghanistan after he most likely killed innocents and raped women there. And yes, your people actually are rapists and murderers. Ask the French ladies of Normandy what the great American soldiers did to them, or ask the German women about the great Russian, American, and British soldiers in Berlin. Anyways, in World War II, that is. But anyways, when he returned, he discovered that his wife was pregnant, and he discovered that his stepfather was the father of the child. He never demonstrated how he discovered. The video began with the man holding his, I believe his child was 8 years old or 6 years old. It was quite young, in the middle, and his mother is on the other side. However, his mother is wearing a blindfold and noise-canceling headphones. You could infer that he asked the wife to cover her eyes and ears for a great surprise, or at least the person filming this asked the wife for the surprise. The pretense was the surprise would involve seeing her husband after deployment for a long time. He stood in front of the camera and in front of his toddler and spoke of his wife's infidelity. In front of his son, he exposed the mother of his child to his child and then to the public. And after he recounted the story of the infidelity, the cameraman asked the wife to remove, or he removed the headphones and the blindfold, and she was ecstatic to see her husband, whom he pushed her, and then he proceeded to push her away, grabbing the child and accusing her of her infidelity, to which she confessed on camera. Now, people will obviously, in the West at least, the men will cheer that man because he has evidence, documented evidence. What do you think this did to the child? I know the silence will commence now, but what do you think this did to the child, seeing his father do this to his mother? And then seeing that on the internet, what do you think will happen to him as he grows? I will leave you to answer that question. Now, what will happen to the wife after the divorce? She has been publicly shamed. What did that do to the society? How did the community or society win from that public scandal or defamation? Nothing. It actually hurt society. You will say, no, it protects men from women like her. No. If men in the West were allowed to marry multiple women, they would not have these issues. Firstly, you have to remember that men's sexual desire or libido is naturally higher than women. And if the woman fails to satisfy that urge, it is acceptable if that man finds another woman to help or assist with that urge. I remember I watched a video for Dr. John DeLuny, I believe is his name. I could be mistaken, honestly. I remember it from the Looney Tunes. I call him DeLuny. I honestly do not know if I am pronouncing it correctly or otherwise. And the woman was complaining about her husband. She works as a first grade teacher and they have 3 children at home, but the husband constantly asks the wife for sex. But she is too exhausted, mothering 3 children and also with a full-time job. And she is right. It is unreasonable. That husband's solution could easily be, you could say, well, he could be patient with her. You do not understand how important or urgent a man's sexual desire is, which is why in Islam we must hurry with marriage. We must hurry in marriage, we must expedite marriage in Islam to protect the man from committing a sin, because the urge might be too strong and the man might fall victim to fornication. That is why the process is expedited. That does not mean women do not have libido. They do. They have sexual urges. But for men, it is the highest priority. This problem could have been easily solved if he married a second wife. That way, for the second wife, he could fulfill his sexual desires while the first wife handles the 3 children. The second wife could help raise the 3 children. It depends on the arrangement, but that is a tale for another time. And their problem solved. There is no third solution. It is either be patient, and he might cheat on his wife if he fails to consistently remain patient, or marry a second wife and be done with it. Men only need 5 minutes or 10 minutes, and that is it. So if his current wife is unable to fulfill that desire, find a second wife. There is no third solution. There is none. And I challenge any sociologist or psychologist to present me with a third solution. There is none. You either be patient and hope that you do not lose the strength or discipline, or marry a second wife. The third option would be to cheat, but I am certain that is not a viable or valid option. People will tell me, well, fasting is part of remaining patient, because fasting actually helps a person learn patience and discipline also. And Islam, that is an option for single men that are unable to marry. They should resort to fasting because this disciplines the person and his willpower. Now that polygyny in Western societies would solve many marital issues, especially infidelity, for men, not for women. Polyandry is abnormal, not normal. Polygyny is normal, but polyandry, one woman with multiple men, that is abnormal. So polygyny, the stepfather, if he had the soldier's mother, but she was insufficient in one form or another, he could have taken another wife. The other reason for that issue was the mingling. When people of opposite sex mingle constantly, that causes feelings to develop, which is why in Islam we segregate, especially in education, schools for boys and schools for girls, because mingling causes feelings to develop, especially if the spouse that is starting to develop feelings for another has problems at home. Then they start envisioning a future with the person they are constantly conversing with at work or at school or at college, etc., etc. That stepfather most likely mingled with the soldier's wife too often because the soldier was deployed where whether it was Iraq or Afghanistan, and she was vulnerable and alone. So he comforted her, reassured her, soothed her. The door opened. You should keep that door closed. Keep it at a professional level. Even though he is a stepfather, he should keep it at a professional level, keep his distance to avoid having that door open. Because when the door opened, both the stepfather and the soldier's wife slid down the spiral. It ended the marriage, it ended with a scandal, everything was ruined. Which is why these matters need to be handled secretively. Why? Because that soldier, I am certain, committed atrocities wherever he was deployed. I am certain he would not want those atrocities to be exposed, because then people will see his true nature. Now, if you do not want people to expose you, do not expose others. If you are truly a Christian, what does your Bible say? If I recall correctly, I may not remember the verse correctly. Do unto others as you wish others to do unto you. Treat people as you wish people to treat you, which is what we have in Islam as well. If you do not want people to expose you when the time comes, and come it will, do not expose others. But if you decide to expose others, do not complain when others expose you. And I will share a story with you. Long ago, though this happened after Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, died, a great Islamic scholar was a neighbor to a regular man. He was not extraordinary. He was not a politician. He was not a great warrior. He was a normal, average citizen of the city. But then one night, that Islamic scholar saw the Prophet, peace be upon him, in a vision. And the devil can never assume the shape or the form of a prophet. Never. So if you see the Prophet in your vision, the Prophet actually visited you in a vision. It was not the devil. And for those that stupidly believe Islam or the teachings of the Quran were revealed from the devil asked us or commanded us to wash ourselves with water in the bathroom to clean ourselves. He forbade fornication. He forbade gayness. He forbade gender changes. He urged husbands to be good to their wives, to raise their children properly, to support their households financially and emotionally, etc., etc. What does your God say in the Bible then? If that is Satan that is teaching us how to be good Muslims, you should be worshiping Satan with us if that is the case. Actually, you do, because you have the Church of Satan in America, which is also tax exempt. So you must truly love Satan more than you love Prophet Yeshua, peace be upon him, the God that you claim that you worship. Anyways, now the Islamic scholar saw the Prophet in his vision, and the Prophet told him, tell your neighbor that he and I are companions or neighbors in heaven. The Islamic scholar awakened the next day and he was shocked. I am a scholar of Islam. I teach people their religion. I am more knowledgeable about the teachings or the tenets of Islam than this neighbor. Yet the Prophet chooses him over me. What did this man do? So he went to his neighbor, knocked on his door. When the neighbor opened, he introduced himself, though the neighbor knows him, but what I meant by introduction, as in he greeted him, and then he recounted the story. Or what did he recount the story? Uh, did he tell him about the vision before or after? Regardless of when he told him, he asked the neighbor, do you do anything special that will earn you heaven or the companionship of the Prophet in heaven? He replied, no, I do not do anything special. I am an average man. I pray 5 times a day. I fast Ramadan. That is it. I do not do more than what is mandatory. The scholar was adamant, you must be doing something special. He said all that was special, at least from my opinion, was when I married my wife, I did not know that she fornicated with a person before me. Man, I hate this stupid headset, but anyways. I did not know that she fornicated before we married. I only discovered this when she became pregnant, and when I calculated the time frame, I realized that she conceived the baby before we married. I confronted her about the matter, and she confessed that she fornicated with someone and then he abandoned her. That is why she decided to marry me, because he left her be. Initially, I was furious, but I forgave her. To avoid exposing my wife, I hid the pregnancy from everyone, which means that the wife most likely was confined to the house to avoid exposing her, because people will also calculate the time frame as the husband did. So most likely he had to confine her at home until she gave birth, unless he had other means of hiding the pregnancy, a pillow perhaps, or a wider clothing. That way she can leave home. He never specified how he covered the pregnancy. This is merely conjecture on my end. Obviously, it will be unnatural to have the wife confined to the house for 9 months. But regardless of how he covered the pregnancy, he evidently covered it. Then, when he brought the housewife, he brought one that can be trusted, could be entrusted with a secret. Not a housewife, sorry, a midwife. For those that do not know, the midwife is a woman that assists in birthing or handles birthing for women. But now you are obligated to do so at hospitals so that you enter into debt whenever you give birth. Anyways, that is how they punish you for marrying and having children, by fining you for giving birth. But anyways, so when she birthed, I believe he was a boy. He decided to take him to the mosque for the first prayer the next day. And he intentionally went to the prayer late so that everyone is praying, no one will see him enter the mosque. Then he placed the baby behind everyone at the end of the mosque. Then he joined the prayer normally. After the prayer ended, people started hearing the cries of a baby. They looked around and then they saw the baby behind them all. They all rushed. Whose baby is this? Whose baby is this? What will we do? So the husband then stepped in and told everyone, I will care for him as if he was my own. This is what we call in Islam kafalat al-yatim, sponsorship of an orphan, not adoption, because adoption involves the orphan assuming your last name, which means that even though he is not biologically your blood, he is legally your blood, which causes issues. If you wish to see what the opposite of Islam involves or entails, look at the West. That is basically it. And do not believe that adoption is merciful. It is actually quite the opposite. Sponsorship is merciful because the child keeps the name of his father regardless. So it is fair to your own children if you sponsor the orphan, but then you die, the orphan does not inherit. Inheritance is by blood only. So the orphan does not inherit, which is fair. He should inherit from the father that abandoned him. But with adoption, that child inherits, which is unfair to the other children. And also, that child cannot marry your daughter because legally they are siblings, but biologically they are not. This is unfair. With sponsorship, the orphan can marry your daughter because they are not biologically connected or related. So he volunteered to sponsor the child. Now, the reason Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, told the scholar that his neighbor will be his friend or his companion or his neighbor in Jannah is because Jannah is heaven. In Arabic, that is because Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, was an orphan. And thus, whenever anyone sponsors an orphan, it is as if he sponsored the Prophet, peace be upon him. And he said, I and the sponsor of an orphan are like this in Jannah. And then he raised his index finger and middle finger straightened and conjoined together or adhering to one another, as if it means they will be best friends or companions or neighbors. And that is when the Islamic scholar understood the reason behind the vision. I recount this tale because it highlights this. He could have easily exposed his wife. He could have easily divorced his wife. For many people, both will be justifiable. For some, the second option will be justifiable. But why did he decide to avoid exposing her? Because he does not want God to expose him, whether in this life, through society. Someone, for example, catches him performing an inappropriate act and they take a picture of it and then they decide to publish it online. God will protect him from that if he protects the reputation of someone else. Or in the hereafter, because in the hereafter the judgment will be public. Whatever you did in this life will be publicized to the endless crowd. God, which would shelter you in the hereafter on the day of judgment, because you decided to protect the reputation of someone else, God will reward you by protecting your reputation. So in Islam, what is a priority is sheltering people, protecting their reputation, because once it is ruined, it might be either difficult or nearly impossible to live normal lives in that society afterwards. You might believe it is justifiable, but place yourself in the shoes of the person you are vehemently opposing. Everyone is wise as long as the story does not involve them. You will be the bravest of knights to protect someone online, whether from predators or from douchebags, from anything. And you will not even listen. You will swing your metaphorical sword because of how pathetic you are in reality. You wish to believe or live in a fantasy that is not reality, so you will swing your sword vehemently to strike down those that may harm the person in your protection or the person you wish to protect, even if you were never even asked to protect. You feel that you are wise for doing so because the story does not include you, it includes someone else. But when it is you that are being sliced by the metaphorical knight, suddenly you will be begging for someone to hear you, to hear your side, to hear your words, to hear your truth, for someone to show mercy, to show compassion, to show anything. Then you will not be wise. You are only wise when the story is not your own. Then you feel, oh, I am amazing. I am a defender. I am a protector. I am a guardian. But when you are placed in the exact same situation or another situation where you are exposed, suddenly you will be begging for someone to show you mercy. Then why did you not show mercy before? Remember this rule. Those that do not show mercy are not shown mercy. It is as simple as that. So the next time you feel that you are the amazing defender, whether online or offline, remember that you will be placed in that exact same situation in the future. It could be 10 years, could be 5 years, could be 1 month, you never know. And remember the story of the Israelite. His father was living with him at the time, but he became fed up with his father. So he decided to kill him so that he could live in the house by himself or marry in the house comfortably. So he told his father, let us take a hunting trip tomorrow and enjoy our time together. The father agreed. The next day they went on the trip, and then the father told the son, do you see that rock, the gigantic boulder over there? The son replied, yes. The father said, let us rest by that boulder for a bit. The son was in a hurry to kill his father, so he opposed it. The father said, please, take me to the boulder, let us rest for a bit. The son eventually relented. After arriving at the boulder, the father remarked, I know you brought me on this hunting trip to kill me, and that is why I asked to rest by this boulder, so that you kill me at this boulder, because this is where I killed my father, your grandfather, and this is where your son will kill you in the future. Do as you please, for one owes as one is owed. When you harm someone and you do not even apologize for it, if you wrong someone and you do not even make amends for it, someone else will wrong you. Because when you wrong someone, now you owe. So that debt must be repaid. God will send someone to wrong you. So it is either you owe or you are owed. When you wrong someone, that person is owed a remedy, and you owe that person. If you do not apologize, God's vengeance, which is justice, will be exacted upon you by sending someone to wrong you either in the same magnitude or worse. Which is why I believe America will suffer the attack of nuclear weaponry, because they inflicted that upon the people of Fallujah during the Iraqi invasion and Hiroshima and Nagasaki. But we will wait and see what happens. So remember that if you expose someone, someone else will expose you. So do not show dishonor in opposition. You might relish it, but you will disdain it when it occurs to you. Now, returning to the story of the man that chose to shelter his wife, why did he not divorce her? He could have divorced her, and by many standards, he would be justifiable. But I will answer this question with another story. During the time of the second caliph, Umar ibn al-Khattab radiallahu anhu, he was also the Prophet's second best friend. His first best friend or closest best friend was Abu Bakr radiallahu anhu, the first caliph. During the time of the second caliph, a group of sons had an argument with, I believe, a trader. Their father was a shepherd and he was a trader, or perhaps a farmer, either or. And during an altercation, it escalated physically, and then the farmer or the trader killed the shepherd. The sons brought the farmer or the trader to the caliph, whom also serves as a judge, and asked for retribution. What happened? I had a physical altercation with their father and I killed him. He asked the sons, do you forgive him? No, we do not forgive him. Exact punishment, which is death. The farmer or the trader interjected. He said, please give me, it was either 3 days or 30 days. I honestly do not remember. The caliph was puzzled. Why are you asking for this? The farmer or the trader replied, someone entrusted me with their property or their items, and I have to return it before you execute me. The trip will take 3 days or 30 days, either or. The number does not truly matter. The caliph remarked, if I grant you this opportunity, you will escape. One of the Prophet's companions, who was alive at the time, intervened and declared that he will guarantee the man's return. And if he does not return, he will take his place. He took that vow or that oath. The caliph reminded the companion, you do realize if he does not return, you will take his place? The companion confirmed. Okay, fine, go. You take your 3 days or your 30 days. When the time elapsed, they saw the farmer or the trader return, and the caliph was surprised. He asked him, "Why did you not escape? You had every opportunity to escape." He said, "I did not want people to say that honor has died, as in honoring your commitments or honoring your words or honoring your promises." That type of honor. He then looked at the companion that guaranteed his return. He asked him, "Do you know this person?" The companion replied, "No." "Then why did you decide to take such a risk with your guarantee or your vow?" The companion replied, "Because I do not want people to believe brotherhood died, that we would help each other as brothers, which is the concept in Islam, that we treat each other as siblings in Islam, which is stronger than siblings in humanity." The sons of the deceased or murdered shepherd were incredibly touched by the exchange. They told the caliph, "We forgive the farmer or the trader." The caliph was surprised. "Why do you forgive him?" And they replied, "Because we do not want people to say forgiveness and mercy died." This brings me to the topic of forgiveness. And I will cover it briefly because it's not the subject of the video, but since it is related, I wish to discuss it as well in case you do not know what forgiveness entails, especially if you are not a Muslim. And I remember this because someone was sharing with me the opinion of forgiveness from a Christian woman, and she did not even know what forgiveness meant or what hatred even meant or how she should hate or how she should forgive, which is ironic. I mean, read your damn Bible, and if it is not there, then there is a missing component in your religion, so you should look elsewhere perhaps. Anyways, let us use this color. For forgiveness, I may record a seminar for this separately, bi'idhnillah, and God willing. There are two types of forgiveness. One where a person forgives, but the wound remains, or the traces of the wrongdoing remains. This is called da'af in Arabic, or pardon. This is the closest translation, even though it is inaccurate, but the closest translation. This is where man, I hate these headsets. This is where the fault is forgiven, but the pain from that mistake still lingers in the heart of your victim. He will pardon you. Again, this is not the correct, accurate translation of the term from Arabic. This is the closest approximation. The second type of forgiveness revolves around forgiving the mistake and that its traces are not in the heart. It is as if it never happened. This is in Arabic called safh. I honestly do not know how to label it in English, but perhaps remedy? I honestly do not know. English is quite a poor language compared to Arabic, which is far superior than any language, actually, not only English. And this is not an attempt at being reductive towards English. These are facts. If you do not believe me, go research them, or you can simply abide by what your educational institute states about English. And since your education is poor compared to Islamic teachings, then yeah, I will leave you to your ignorance. But anyways, I will call it remedy. I do not believe this is correct in terms of translation. If someone feels there is a better translation for it, please mention it in the comments below. But I will write the definitions because that is what is important. For giving the mistake, but its pain still lingers. That is the first type. The second type, for giving the mistake, but its pain is non-existent. It is as if it never happened. This obviously depends on the person and it differs from person to person. Some people cannot forget the pain, others can forgive and forget. Obviously, the better option is this one. So the person who is able to undergo this type of forgiveness receives more reward than this person, because it is always better to forgive and forget. But you are not to be blamed if you are unable to forget. And sometimes it begins with the inability to forget, but then with time you forget. It depends on the person, to be quite honest. But the question here is, when should you forgive? To answer that question, we need to ask, what does forgiveness even entail? How would you define forgiveness? Forgiveness entails the ability to punish a culprit, but refusing to do so. That is forgiveness. When you wish to punish someone, but you decide against punishing that person, that is called forgiveness. For a person to be in the position of forgiving a fault, that culprit must be caught, as in, that culprit must apologize for the mistake. Because then when the culprit is caught, or when the culprit is apologizing, you hold the power to either punish or forgive at that point. If the culprit never admits or recognizes their mistake, they are not a culprit, which means that you do not have the ability to punish to begin with. And if you do not have the ability to punish, you do not have the ability to forgive either. What does that mean? When a person admits their mistake and asks you for forgiveness, then you are able to forgive. But then when they raise the middle finger and tell you, to hell with you, I will not admit that I made a mistake because I do not believe it is a mistake, why should you forgive that person? You should not forgive that person because they did not apologize. They are being arrogant about it. Why should you forgive? But would you be able to forgive if the culprit apologizes? Remember what I said earlier, those that do not show mercy are not shown mercy. If you wish people to forgive you, forgive others. Whether the culprit is sincere about their apology or not, normally, the culprit or the wrongdoer should show their sincerity for the sin or for the mistake to be forgiven. It is not simply, I am sorry, and then repeat it again. No. I am sorry, and here is how I will show that I am sincere about my apology. And that does not involve flowers, by the way. If this is between a husband and a wife and one of them cheated, for example, no, it is not flowers. You have to show sincerity through action. actions. For you to actually forgive, this must be satisfied. Words must match actions. Why? Because that shows sincerity, which is why you will detect sincerity through these, because these are not words alone. They also involve action. If the words match the action, then they are sincere. If the words mismatch the action, the words are insincere. Now, finally, should you forgive? We covered this. If you wish others to forgive you, forgive others. And I will end, I believe this will actually be the end this time. I will end with another story. I know someone who was asked to reconcile between the parents of a divorced wife and her douchebag of a husband. He divorced her on the eve of our Islamic holiday. I do not remember which one was it, Eid Fitr or Eid Adha. I do not remember. It does not truly matter. He divorced her on the eve of the holiday, which means on the night of that holiday. So the next morning would begin that holiday, the first day of the holiday. Whether he chose the moment or was it out of impulse, it does not truly matter. Now, the mother of the divorced wife contacted this person because of his affiliation with the father. And she asked him to speak to the father to accept the douchebag of the ex-husband's apology because he realized his mistake, supposedly or allegedly, and decided to meet with the family during their lunch to apologize and rectify the mistake. To which the mother knew the father would obviously reject. So she contacted this person. This person decided to talk to the father, and this is how he spoke about the matter. I know that what he did is wrong and most likely unforgivable by many standards, but if I was in his position and I committed the same mistake, I would want the parents or the family of my wife to forgive me. So that is why, father of the divorced wife, you should forgive him as well. According to the mother, that is when he spoke of that, that was the only reason why the father actually agreed. Because the man told him, if I made the same mistake, I would want you to forgive me. Now, in a relationship, specifically a spousal relationship, but generally any relation, oh man. Generally, any relationship, specifically a spousal relationship, you need this. You desperately need this effective communication, whether it is between you and your manager, you and your parents, you and your coworkers, you and your friends, you and your husband, you and your wife. I will not say you and your boyfriend or you and your girlfriend, because as we have determined, a girlfriend is worse than a whore, which is worse than a wife. And that does not mean I say boyfriends, I place boyfriends on a rank higher than a girlfriend. For me, both are filth. I will say that. But I focus on the women because they are the pillar to raising the generation of the future. So if you ruin the woman, you ruin society. And you can see how they ruined women in your society. I do not need to elaborate any further. You need effective communication, which means what? Discover your ears before you discover your lips and tongue. Discover your ears. You are not always right. No matter how experienced you are or how wise you are not perfect. And truth will always remain relative except in death. In death, truth becomes absolute. Other than that, truth will always be relative, which is why you see people see the truth in Islam yet reject it, because the truth is relative. They do not view it as truth, even though the evidence is there and they agree with it, they still reject it. If there is heaven and hell, truth will never be objective or absolute. It becomes absolute in death. In death, you will see which religion was correct, whether it was Islam, Christianity, Judaism, or any of the isms. Shintoism, Hinduism, Buddhism, Taoism, Confucianism, etc., etc., feminism or fartism, etc., etc. Then you will know the truth. Whether it will be too late for you or not, that is a different story. What does that mean? It means discover your ears before you discover your lips and tongue. Listen before you speak. You may believe you have the truth, but in reality you might not have it. When you listen to the other party, then the truth will be complete for you. Or you may have the full truth, but you do not know of that. Listen regardless. And I will speak of another story to highlight the importance of active listening. The Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, knew that his message was the truth. Nothing else was truthful. Yet one of the leaders of the oligarchy of Quraysh approached him at the time he was at Mecca, before he migrated to Medina. Mecca, by the way, has an alternate name called Becca, which was mentioned in the Bible. Go research. Anyways, the man, he never became Muslim, by the way, and I believe that man is the father of one of the greatest generals in history, the companion Khalid ibn al-Walid radiallahu anhu. And you know what is hilarious? Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him's legacy, ended the Roman Empire and the Persian Empire. Yet they do not call him Muhammad the Great. Alexander the Great did what? Conquered the Ahmedid Empire, which was a Persian empire, and they called him the Great. Oh, because he united East with West. So did the Muslims. I do not hear anyone saying Muhammad the Great. What did Cyrus the Great do? He ended the Babylonians. Just one empire, as with Alexander the Great. Those were two empires that fell. And what, 10 crusades or 13 crusades? I lost count, because the last crusade was World War I when we actually lost. I do not hear anyone saying Muhammad the Great, or Khalid ibn al-Walid the Great, or Abu Bakr the Great. Why? Because they are Muslim, of course. They focus on Genghis Khan and his brutality. Oh, he is an amazing leader. Alexander the Great, amazing leader. Cyrus the Great, amazing leader. Any Muslim? No, no, they are Muslim. Hide their glory. Anyways, so this leader of the oligarchy approached Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, and started speaking. Listen, what you are doing is wrong. It separates between familial members, sons becoming Muslims and their parents are hating them for it, or sons are hating their parents when they become Muslim, husbands and wives, and so on and so forth. And it is ruining our cohesion as a society. What do you want? Wealth, we will give you money. Leadership, we will elect you as our leader. Women, we will have you marry. In pre-Islamic Arabia, there was no limit to marriage, just as in Western societies. But with Islam, it was limited to or restricted to only 4. So what do you want? And he started speaking, and the Prophet was silent and he was listening. After he finished completely, he asked him, "Did you finish so that I am able to speak?" He said, "Yes, I am finished." And then the Prophet started preaching his message to him. Even though the Prophet knows with 100% certainty that anything this man will bring him is false, he still listened to him. He understood his perspective. Even though it was a flawed perspective, he listened to it. Even if he will not agree with it, I am not asking you to agree with the perspective if you do not see it as a viable perspective. But it could be a perspective you are unaware of, and once you hear it, you become convinced by it. I am not forcing you to accept it. If you wish to disagree with it afterwards, okay, fine. I could preach Islam to you and show you all the evidence and you still reject it. Okay, fine. I am not asking you to forcefully accept it. No one is asking you to force yourself to accept an opinion you disagree with. But do not tell me I am open-minded when you do not even listen to begin with, and you are not even willing to listen. You just raise your sword. The Bible tells us to love thy enemy, Muslims, and I love you with the sword. No. Listen, because especially if you are a dumb Westerner, and by dumb I mean young, inexperienced in life, inexperienced in society, especially social aptitude, inexperienced in communication, do not tell me you are experienced, you are not. If you are below the age of 18, below the age of 20, 25 even, or 30, you are not experienced. From 30 onwards, for a Westerner, I would say perhaps you are experienced, or you are acquiring experience. From what I see with Westerners, it is 40 and above. Below that, in my eyes, you are not experienced. Below the age of 18, actually, it might be 25 now. Below the age of 25, you are not experienced in the eyes of anyone. Below the age of 30, by Western standards, you are not experienced either. So do not believe you are not. And I have seen people that are 25 and above, and they do not know how to handle regular conversations. I know a person, he told me he met an Australian woman who claims to be quote unquote Christian, even though she is fornicating. Even though she is fornicating with her boyfriend for a year under the same roof. I believe he met her through D&D, I honestly do not remember. And she approached him one day crying that a 20-year-old, she is 26 years old, a 20-year-old did not respond to her, even though she was, according to her, They have been quote unquote friends for a year, online friends, which means they are not friends, they are strangers. And this 20-year-old brought a 26-year-old to her knees crying. Why? Because the 26-year-old thought of the 20-year-old as a close friend, because they have been quote unquote friends for a year online. And that friendship ended in half a day, in a few hours even. And she approached him, which she found surprising. He pondered why. I wonder why you approached me out of everyone in your life. And you know what she told him? I knew you would have the answer. So people with experience exude that experience, exude that aura. That is as closest as I could translate it from Arabic. Exude that respect without even showing it. They simply exude it through their mannerism, through their intonation, through their inflection, and so on and so forth. So he told her, listen, you were deluding yourself. You were never her friend, and she was never your friend. You were merely someone to waste time with while playing video games. And once she became fed up with you, she found someone else. And that is why she stopped replying to your messages when you had to message a mutual acquaintance to see if she was all right. And she replied to the mutual acquaintance, but she did not reply to you. And then she surprised him about the fact that she takes pride in being a slut, and that she takes pride in cheating on her boyfriends. If I recall his story correctly, he told me that the Australian woman shared this bitch that she was crying about had slept with six men in 3 weeks or in a span of a month. It was something that ridiculous. And he told her, you want to be friends with a slut? You are your own company. If I wish to know whom you are, I look at your friends. If I see you spending time with a slut, I will say you are a slut. You will tell me, I never touched a man, then you will become a slut. If you spend too much time in the swamp, you will acquire the odor of the swamp. It is as simple as that. But then she accused him of projecting himself onto what he listed as attributes and traits of low-life scum, because she's actually one of the people that accused him of being predatory because, yes, he is the one that was going to marry that slut that pretended that she will accept Islam when in reality no Muslim would actually do what she did. But anyways, listen, if you are a Muslim listening to this, stay away from Western women. Stay away from Western women. They will break the rules, but when you break them, they will become the police. They have double standards like that. It is as simple as that. And do not be fooled when they tell you we will become Muslim. Have them convert firstly, then see if they were sincere, then marry them. But do not take them if they tell you, oh, we will become Muslim, because most likely they are these. So when you are communicating, listen before you speak. Naturally and biologically, a person feels ecstatic when they speak because they feel heard, or at least they believe they are heard. So it is difficult for many to control themselves and remain silent while the other speaks. That is why you might be constantly interrupting someone, or someone you know is constantly interrupting you. How do you deal with constant interruptions? We can record the video separately بإذن and God willing. So remember, before you judge a person, listen, because the person who wronged you might have done so in ignorance, might. And if they did not wrong you in ignorance, look at their history. How so? This will take us to another story. When Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, was going to liberate or invade or conquer, however you wish to view it, we as Muslims call it liberation, liberating it from the evil that is against Islam. So when you introduce Islam to it, you liberate it. Similar to how Americans feel bombing people, killing people, torturing people, raping people is liberating them. Except we do not do that. But anyways, when he was going to send his army to Mecca to liberate it or conquer it, one of the companions sent a message to the leaders in Mecca to warn them. He wanted to warn them so that they might show their appreciation towards his gesture, not because his intent was to betray the Prophet. But the Prophet discovered this treachery, and he actually dispatched two companions to retrieve that message in transit. And then, in front of everyone, he exposed the letter. One of the Prophet's companions asked the Prophet to grant him permission to execute him, because this is treachery, high treason. The Prophet told him no. Well, firstly, the Prophet asked him, "Why did you do this?" And then the companion justified, "I did this so that they could appreciate my gesture." Obviously, that is not a good excuse, but the Prophet heard what he had to say in his defense before sentencing him. But then the Prophet told the companion that wanted to execute him, he told him he has seen Badr, which was the first battle ever to be waged between the Muslims and non-Muslims, the first official battle between the Prophet and the Meccans. What does that mean? The Prophet looked at the history of the man and noticed that his history was honorable, was positive. Because of that history, this action can be forgiven, because his history was that of purity, of cleanliness, of honor, of loyalty. He made a mistake out of ignorance. Let us forgive him for it. So after you listen, you then look at the history of the person you are judging. Hold on, I will create a diagram here for judgment. How should you judge? Or what are the steps for judgment? Firstly, you listen. Listen to the excuse or reason for the mistake. Then look at the history. Review the culprit's history. This could also occur in a judicial setting where a person would steal for the first time and the judge would decide to exonerate the thief because he has no history of theft, just as an example. Then, after you have listened to both parties and judged or reviewed the history, then you judge. Upon which standards? For us, we judge based on what Islam taught. We judge based on what Islam taught us, what to do in such circumstances. But it is also contextual because in the Prophet's story, this person committed high treason, so he deserves execution. But in his case, execution was not good judgment. His exoneration was. Why? Because of the history. This reminds me of a story that I must recount. I wish to end this video already, but this story is incredibly important. I know someone who engaged in extramarital affairs online. Why is irrelevant, but at the beginning of his marriage, he had issues with his wife because of lack of employment, which will cause problems in any household, because the man's position or location is outside the house. He needs to work outside the house. If he stays at home, war will erupt. Home is the position of the wife. Outside is the position of the husband. There were issues regarding employment because of his immigration to a different country and so on and so forth, which is to be expected when you immigrate to a different country. There will be certain hindrances to employment naturally, especially if you lack certain certifications or licenses. Now, to escape this issue, and he enjoys or he used to engage in textual role playing, he decided to seek that as an outlet again. Through role plays, he met various women. He would engage in relationships with them, one after the other, one after the other. But he felt disgusted by his behavior. So he ended everything and he decided, I will never do this again. I will not return to this filth again. And to be quite honest, from what he shared about those bitches online, he dodged multiple nuclear missiles, to be quite honest. But anyways, because of these. But even though he ended everything, his wife discovered the matter. And she confronted him. He was working at a warehouse at the time, and when he returned, he saw that his wife was upset and asked him to join her in a meeting, and then she shared what she has discovered. And he told her everything about what happened. Now, this is what I respect about the wife. She asked him, why did you do this? And he shared that we had problems and so on and so forth, and I felt suffocated, I felt trapped in the marriage, and so on and so forth. Now, the wife actually admitted that she contributed to that behavior when she should have supported her husband in his desperate time. That does not absolve the husband either. But then she shared the story with her mother, asking for her opinion. Should I continue in the marriage or should I leave? Then the mother reviewed the husband's history. She told him, listen, and I actually, when I hear this part, I feel vulnerable because of how beautiful it is. She told the wife, listen, he is at his core a good man, but he was misguided. So give him a second chance because he is at his core a good man. And that is what she shared with him. My mother said this, and I actually agree with her. You are a good man, but you were misguided. You deluded yourself into believing a truth that was non existent, and so on and so forth. and you open the door, which is why I was telling you earlier in the video, keep the door closed. Do not even leave it open a crack or ajar. Close it. Because if it opens, you are opening a gateway to your disaster. Because then when it opens, you will want to enter through it. And if you will want to enter through it, you will want to explore the depth of that hole you found yourself in. Keep the door closed, stay away, do not mingle. And if you wish to date, follow these steps to show your sincerity and to reassure the people that you are not using their daughter for nothing and your chicks for free. So do not open the door. Then after that, the wife decided to forgive him, but he had to show sincerity. So she asked a few she asked of him a few actions that he needed to commit to on a monthly basis and persistently maintain that pattern to see if he actually was invested in the marriage. And he told me our marriage actually became stronger after the incident. Why? Because when the wife listened to him, she realized that there were barriers in communication. And they decided to improve upon these barriers. And it is as Allah said in the Quran, and you may love that which is harmful to you, and you may hate that which is beneficial to you. This is a verse in the Quran. You might, as one of the people I mentioned in this video, feel attracted towards a woman. You might love her, but you do not know that she is actually harmful to you. Or you as a woman might be attracted to a man, but you do not realize that he is harmful to you. And you may hate a man, and you do not realize that he is actually beneficial to you. That is why you hear people in the West saying girls love bad boys, because they are idiots. They love that which is harmful to them. And from God's justice and mercy, He sends signs, but people choose to ignore them, similar to the fire in Los Angeles. People say, oh, natural disaster. You insult God Sunday night, then you suffer His wrath Monday, and it is a natural disaster? But the signs are there. If you wish to ignore them, by all means be that arrogant. Let us see where that arrogance lands you, as they say, or what that arrogance begets you. Anyways, now the story that I recounted a few moments ago is also an example of how to judge. The wife initially in her anger wanted to expose the husband. But thankfully she did not. She even told him, in my anger, I was thinking of exposing you and then leaving. She even asked him, what would you have done if I exposed you? And he replied, and I agree with it. I can no longer show my face in the community, so I will find another city. I will leave to another city. And I agree with that. Which is why you should not expose people, because if they cannot relocate to a different city, it will be nearly impossible for them to live in the same community. Empathize with people. Empathize with people. Anger and astringency are needed in their contexts. Exposing your spouse, exposing the mother of your children, or the father of your children, whether it is truthful or otherwise, is inauspicious, either forgive and aim to resolve the matter, as with the couple I mentioned, or leave quietly. Man, I hate these headsets. Or quietly leave. And whenever people ask you what happened, it is a private matter. And that is it. And trust me, when you actually behave in such a manner, you will see how God will reward you, even if you are not a Muslim. Because God's justice demands so in this life. In the hereafter, it is a different story. But in this life, if He sees you behave appropriately, He will reward you accordingly, because He is the most just for Muslims and non-Muslims. Even in the hereafter, if you are a non-Muslim, you are doomed to hell. But He will actually show you your actions in life, and then He will ask you, did my recorders or my scribes, as in the angels that record good deeds and bad deeds, did they commit any injustice towards you? And you will reply no, and then He will tell His angels, take him to hell. And you deserve hell because you never believed in Him, so you do not deserve His heaven. It is as simple as that. You cannot share my heaven when you kill me and label me as an infidel or a heretic, and you disbelieve in what I believe in. How can you share my heaven? Just as I cannot share in your heaven. It is stupid. And this also brings me to another story. It happened long ago. A man was going to divorce his wife. So the people asked him, why are you divorcing your wife? And he replied, how can I be called a man if I expose my wife? After he divorced her, then she married someone else. Then they came and asked him, why did you divorce your wife? He replied, what kind of a man would I be if I expose someone else's wife? That is a man. That right there is a man. And remember this for women specifically. When you send your naked pictures through texts or online to someone, remember the pain you feel when they extort you with these pictures. Remember the pain you feel when they could potentially expose those pictures. And it is only through God's mercy alone and graciousness that you have not been exposed. So do not expose others, because those pictures that you sent could easily be exposed, easily. And since this is normal in your society, no one would blame the male that shared your pictures, or the female if you are a lesbian. Remember that pain. Remember that, what is the word I am searching for? It is best to describe it in Arabic, to be quite honest. That concern, though I feel pain is stronger than concern, but remember that position you have placed yourself in. Do not inflict that pain onto others. If God has sheltered you, shelter others. Do not think of yourself as a mighty individual and start exposing people simply to say, oh, I am warning society. No, you are ruining society. A scandalous society is a disjointed society. Look at the West. If you want proof, look at the West. Look at the rates of homelessness, the rates of divorce, the rates of children with suffering from depression or other mental disorders because of the divorce or because of fights at home, etc., etc. Do not propagate that disaster any further. If you dislike what your spouse has done, quietly leave. If you cannot forgive, quietly leave. Yes, the pain might linger, yes, but exposing your spouse will grant you momentary relief. And you can read the study that was carried out on people that sought revenge. They brought a group of people. If I find the name of the study, I might attach it as a resource for this video. But with Google or ChatGPT, you can find it easily. In this study, they were studying the sweetness of revenge. They brought a group of people that underwent injustice or were wronged by others. They recorded their response while they were speaking of the injustice. Then they recorded the people's response after giving a scenario where they exact painful vengeance upon those that have wronged them. They noticed extreme joy, happiness, and relief in the people. But they also noticed that it was brief, it was temporary, it was not permanent. Why? Because that vengeance, by the way, vengeance is justice. I said so earlier in the video. If you exact your vengeance correctly, the people feel temporary relief or happiness because the vengeance is dishonorable. The vengeance is dishonorable. It is not honorable. Thus, it is not just. If the vengeance is not honorable, it is not just. You will feel joy if you commit dishonor in opposition as part of your vengeance. Yes, you will feel joy, but only temporary. Why? Because you will be disgusted with yourself, whether it is disgust at the conscious level or at the subconscious level. As they say, deep down, you are disgusted with yourself, or you are cognizantly disgusted with yourself. You are aware that what you did was a great or grave mistake. Subconsciously, you might easily dismiss that disgust. But the joy will remain temporary. It will remain brief. It will never continue. I remember I saw a video of a rather obnoxious bimbo, and you will see why I say bimbo momentarily. Oh man, I have to answer this. I will be right back. Apologies for that. I may have to actually leave to the hospital in the upcoming days. One of the people I spoke of in this video, he was actually the one that was going to marry the bimbo that told him she will become Muslim. He had, well, I believe the term, if I recall correctly, is relapsed. Regarding his medical condition, he is bleeding again and suffering from chest tightness, which actually he struggled with in the past. And he might be transferred to the hospital in the upcoming days, so I might actually I might have to leave to the hospital soon. We will see what happens, but let us hope for the best. Man, I swear. I just wish these people would stop dating Western females, whether online or offline. Anyways, I genuinely do not remember where I stopped before departing. Let us see if I can recall. Uh, Probably it was related to sheltering people, yes. But lastly, since we discussed judgment, there is a verse I would like to show you in the Quran. Let us see here. What was it? Quran.com. Okay. There it is. Okay, let us see here. Um, what would it be called? Hujurat. The rooms. Okay, yeah, which is correct. I believe it was verse 17. Could be mistaken. Okay. Where is it? Where is it? I had to retrieve this so I can see the translation of this word. So I was going to say terrible person, wicked person, evildoer. O believers, if an evildoer brings you any news, verify it. Even if it is an evildoer, yes, verify it. Even if the person bringing you the news or the evidence, supposed evidence, is a terrible person, is a douchebag, still investigate it and verify it. So you do not harm people unknowingly. Because if you do, then you will become regretful later on. Because you have already inflicted the damage. Even if you are not Muslim, remember this verse. Even if a douchebag brings you any news, verify it before you believe it or before you act upon it. If you might ask, well, is it only douchebag? No, if a douchebag brings you anything and you still need to verify it, what should you do if a good person brings you any news? If it is even with the douchebag, you still verify it. That means if a good person brings you anything, verify it as well. Because you might not know that the good person is actually a good person, especially if it is online. How would you know? The answer is you would not know. Do not be arrogant and say, I have talked to this person for years. You have not known him. If you have not met in person and you have not broken bread with that person, you do not know that person. So remember this verse when you are judging, and I will tell you this. If your spouse is a good person at their core, but they made a mistake, let it slide. Let it slide. The cohesion of your family is more important because in your divorce, you might inflict more damage than remaining together. Assuming that your spouse is a good person. If he is physically abusive or if he is a douchebag naturally, I would say it is up to you. If you still wish to remain in the marriage for the sake of the children, so be it. I cannot force you naturally. But if you want my advice, well, it would depend on the context and the circumstances, to be quite honest. I cannot judge generally and absolutely. But I would say it is up to you what you wish to do, assuming you are truthful about the terror you are suffering at the hands of your husband, or if you are truthful about the terror you are suffering at the hands of your wife, because some wives are terrible as well. And I will end with these points. There are four types of people in this world. Those that know and know that they know. Those that do not know and know that they do not know. Those that do not know, those that know and know that they know. Those that know and do not know that they know, and do not know that they know. Those that know and know that they know. Information, knowledge, etc. Those that know but do not know that they know, which should change this to but. Those that do not know and know that they do not know. And lastly, and this is the person you should either avoid or you should avoid becoming. Those that do not know, actually I will keep this as and. Those that do not know and sadly and do not know that they do not know. Completely ignorant. Do not be this person. Do not befriend such a person. Most of the time, online, these are the people you encounter. Remember that Australian bimbo that accused my friend of being a predator even though the other bimbo is the one that engaged in the relationship? She did not even bother listening to him because he would have told her, in my religion, which is true in Islam, as long as a person reached puberty, they are eligible for marriage. There are other circumstances that may actually permit or prevent the marriage, but the standard is puberty. Once you reach puberty, you are able to marry. And because she is ignorant, as Westerns normally are, they do not know and they do not know that they do not know. I want you to investigate and research 6-year-old Bedouin females. They are taller than the average male in the West. What am I supposed to do with such a woman if she reached puberty at 6 years old? Put her in elementary school with 6-year-olds? What am I supposed to do exactly? But because Westerners are idiots and ignorant, they only believe that the entire world is theirs and that is it. And since Westerners normally do not travel abroad, they do not see other societies. They do not know that there are standards other than Western standards that could be, God forbid, better than their own. But anyways, so avoid this, do not be this one. If you are a Western, I urge you to travel to other countries, even if they are Western countries. But travel. Do not speak and judge. Do not speak and judge when you do not have the experience and you do not have the wisdom. And I will tell you this, most of the time Westerns lack wisdom of any kind. They have not even seen outside their own city or their own state. Where will they obtain the wisdom? From Walmart? Anyways, there were 3 other points that I wanted to list for you, but honestly, I do not remember. This video might have exhausted my memory. And to be quite honest, learning about my, I would not say friend's condition, but I do know him and I do know his surroundings or his circle, let us say. And honestly, even if I did not know him at a personal level, he is Muslim after all. So we stand by our Muslim brethren regardless. As the Prophet said, support your brother whether he is unjust or the victim of injustice. The companions asked, okay, we understand what you mean when you say support the victim of injustice, retrieve the right, or correct the wrong. How are we supposed to support the unjust? The Prophet replied, by preventing his injustice, by stopping his injustice, by stopping him, basically. That is how you support him. It is as the adage states, I am with my country, right or wrong, I believe. That I could be incorrect about the maxim. I honestly do not remember it correctly. But yes, the news have shocked me, to be quite honest. And I feel I might know why his condition has exacerbated, but let us hope for the best. Anyways, I believe I will end the video here. If I think of any more points I wish to discuss, I will record them in a separate video, but I believe I covered what is necessary for this part right here. Actually, I have one more important part to add. As a woman, show dignity and respect to yourself. I know of a person who had a bimbo, a slutty bimbo in his D&D group, and she told him, she spoke of her quote-unquote partner, or as he calls him, her masturbatory partner, which I agree with because it is online and they mainly moan and have fun online, and that is it. She had 4 boyfriends in 4 different years. By our standards, that is a slut. By fartist standards, that is quite an understatement. It needs, or I should not say an understatement, an underachievement. She needs more. Anyways, she was discussing the fact that this never happened. And he told her, listen, you need to discuss, if you two are sincere about marriage, why have you not discussed anything related to your future together? It is only Dungeons and Dragons and moans and lust and sex, and that is it. And after he highlighted many indicators and signs to which she should actually separate from this masturbatory partner over, she replied, you are right, I agree with your quote-unquote red flags, but I just want to be with someone that I am willing to be with anyone. Garbage bag, toilet paper, gravel, anything, as long as it is there. Obviously, the relationship will fail. Let us count the days and see what happens. Respect yourself. Simply because you want a husband does not mean you should throw yourself into anything. Choose correctly. Do not choose quickly. There are mistakes that cost you seconds, mistake that cost you days, and mistakes that cost you years. Incorrect spouses or incorrect choices in spouses is the last one. Do not ruin yourself because you were too quick to satisfy your sexual needs or satisfy your emotional needs. Choose correctly, do not choose quickly. And that is it for this video. I hope you have a wonderful day. Enjoy the rest of your day, everyone. Be safe, take care, and peace be upon you all. Wassalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.